If you think that dependency injection in .NET Core is just about avoiding a new keyword, then you are already doing it wrong. In this video, I'll show you what DI really is, why ASP.NET Core depends on it, and how professionals use it in a real project. Hey everyone, my name is Rahul and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll understand a dependency injection concept without theory, without buzzword, and with the real code. I'm pretty much sure that if you have given any of your past interviews, then you must have come across this term. That is, what is dependency injection? If you Google it, you will simply get a line that this approach promotes a loose coupling. Some also says that with the help of DI, I can remove the tightly coupled application. It can make my application more modular, testable, and maintainable. But the question is, what is loose coupling? What is tight coupling? Why it is real required? So let's deep dive into the concept of DI with the help of code, and then we'll proceed further, explain the different concept of a DI. I'll switch back to my IDE, which is my Visual Studio. But again, you can use any of your choice. Now let's say I am having an employee controller, and this employee controller consists of a single endpoint called as get. In my employee service, there is a method called as getEmployee. And for the sake of this demo, let's assume that we are fetching a record from database. Currently, I'm returning a blank object from this employee list, but you can think of this that there will be some DB call over here. Now, if I want to call this method, which is my getEmployee method inside my employee controller, then by the concept of an encapsulation, I have to create an object of my employee service. So I'll copy this class file name as my employee service, go to my controller, will write it down employee service, create an object of my employee service, and then with the help of this object, I will call my method, will say employee service dot get employee, and finally I'll return the response in this OK. And with this two lines of code, I'm actually able to call my employee service class, and then I am able to call this method. We have been doing this kind of approach since ages. Like we are creating an object with the help of new keyword and then we are calling the method name with the help of that object. Now, this new keyword is the real devil in your application development, and that is the place where your tight coupling is started. How? If I go to my employee service, and let's suppose if I create a constructor, and in the constructor, I'll start passing a parameter name as string name. You can see that I am only modifying my employee service. And if I save all the changes, if I navigate back to my employee controller, you will notice that this piece of code is already complaining. It already says that I am not happy. If you build your code by build solution, you will get the real error message. And the real error message simply says that there is no argument that corresponds to required parameter name. In simple term, while creating an object of an employee service, I need to pass a name over here, a string property in simple terms. So I can pass a blank string and it will be fine. And see what is happening. Even if I'm modifying my employee service, I have to modify my employee controller. It might be possible that I am creating an object of my employee service in hundred of different places, and I have to modify those places across my entire project. Modification means refactoring. Refactoring means you have to again run a regression cycle. This is tight coupling. This is the point where we say that even if modifying an employee service, why there is a need of modifying the all other classes down the line. And that is the place where a dependency injection comes into a picture. So I hope you get an idea about the problem statement of a DI. Now let's see how we can fix this. Dependency injection simply says that you should be using an interfaces rather than a concrete classes for abstraction. So a simple fix in this approach is a create an interface name as iEmployeeService and then expose a method inside this interface with the name as getEmployee. Then you have to come to your concrete class and you have to inherit your concrete class with that interface. Okay. So with this two-step of process, I have already done the half of my work because DI is implemented internally into a .NET Core ecosystem. As the next step, I have to go to my employee controller or wherever or whichever class if you want to call it, create a constructor in this class, And in the constructor, you will define an iEmployee service, which is an interface object, and then you will create a field based on this employee service. And these patterns will basically contribute to my dependency injection setup. Now let's focus on each of these keywords, what we are doing over here. So first of all, this is my employee controller, which is again a parameterized constructor. And then inside this parameters constructor, I am passing a private read-only field. Now, why it is defined as private, why it is defined as read-only? You pretty much know that private is an access modifier. And if I define as a private, in simple terms, it says that I don't want to expose this employee service outside this class. And when I define as a read-only, I also want to make sure that this instance should not be initiated apart from constructor. With this two keyword, I am making sure that I am giving the access rights properly, and I'm also making sure that this read only keyword will simply make that this employee service should not be registered or should not be initialized anywhere else apart from the constructor. Then what I have to do is I have to use this employee service, and instead of creating a new keyword, I will use this employee service over here, and then I will call this method get employees. Okay. We have to modify this object. So let's call this object name as employee object. Let me fix this. So this is my employee object, and this will be still my employee service. And then it will be my employee service dot get employees. Okay. And let's make this employee service with an underscore. You will notice that this get employees is there. It is basically a part of my method, which is my get employees is a basically my concrete classes. And see, now I'm not creating an object by myself. Rather, I'm asking someone else to create an object of my on my behalf. And then based on that object, I can call this method, and then I can use this method to pass a response to my user. Now, what is the advantage of this approach? The advantage simply says that tomorrow, if we are going to create a new class, maybe if you another have a new class, maybe name as customer service and an interface, which is also termed as iCustomer service. Let me do the same step over here as well. So customer service and iCustomer service. And in my employee service, if I inject iCustomer service, you will notice that there will be no impact in my existing code. Over here as well, I am injecting a new parameter into my constructor, which in simple terms, I am defining a new parameterized constructor. But even in that case, my employee controller is happy. Why so? Because I am not creating an object by myself. And since I'm not doing this, so I'm least bothered about what number of parameters is required to create an object of employee service. I will offload this activity to my DI container. So just to repeat it again, in order to work with a DI into a .NET Core ecosystem, you need to perform a three-way step. In the first step, you have to create an interface. In the interface, you need to expose all those methods which you want to expose outside your concrete class. In the next step, you need to inherit your interface with the concrete class. And in the final step, you need to go to the constructor of the relevant class file where you want to use that concrete class, inject the interface inside the constructor, and you are good to go. Now you can use the interface object to call any of the method of your concrete classes. Well, by the way, this type of injection is called as constructor injection in DI, and there are two more types of it as well, which we'll be going to cover in some next videos. Okay, but this is termed as constructor injection. Up to this point, we have done the major heavy lifting of our work, but one part is still pending, and that is combining everything together to inject or to initialize my DI pipeline. And that step is you have to go to the program.cs, and then you to write a line which simply says builder.services.add transient, give the name as my iEmployee service, and then employee service. And similarly, I have to do the same step for my customer service as well. Which simply says that builder.add transient, and then it's iCustomer service, and then customer service. Okay. Now, what exactly do we mean by these statement? What exactly we are doing over here? So up to this point, you will notice that I am not relying on my concrete class object creation. Rather, I am asking someone else to create an object on my behalf and then use it. And this line of code will tell .NET ecosystem that how long you want to persist that object in the memory. Based on this line, I am saying that whenever I request for my iEmployee service, give me an object of an employee service. In a simple terms, you can say that whenever I ask for an interface of an iEmployee service, give me an object of this employee service concrete class. Similarly, whenever I ask for an interface of an iCustomer service, give me an object of a customer service concrete class. And the more interfaces and the more concrete classes you would be having in your entire code base, you need to repeat this line again and again. There is one more important aspect or important point to discuss in this line is what is this add transient? And apart from add transient, .NET Core exposes two more APIs, which is add scoped and then add singleton. What's the difference between add transient, add scoped, and add singleton? And in which scenario we should be using this? So that is something which will come into an advance of a DI, which I'm going to cover in my next video. But as of now, you can understand that since you are not creating an object by yourself, you are asking a .NET Core framework, a DI framework, to create an object on your behalf. So in a similar way, you need to tell them as well that how long you want to persist that object in the memory. And that is the method which is add transient, add singleton, and add scope. With the help of these three methods, I will tell .NET Core that I want to persist this object in my memory for so and so duration. These three APIs, these three methods are useful in different scenario, which we'll definitely going to cover in next video. Now, once these things are done, you can simply run your code and can navigate to the UI. So let me put a breakpoint at the relevant location and then run this application. So if I click on this green button, it will build my entire code and then it will open up my Swagger UI. So I am back to my Swagger now. You can see that this API is running and Swagger is there. Let me test this API. I'll click on try it out and click on execute. And the moment I click on execute, you will notice that I hit a breakpoint, and this time I'm getting a breakpoint into my employee controller. But this employee controller is also doing something behind the scenes. So whenever I hit a breakpoint and whenever I press F10, you can see this employee service is actually getting an object of my customer service, of my employee service. Okay, let's do a quick watch and let's zoom it for you guys. So whenever I'm asking for an employee service, I will get an object of my employee service concrete class. But why I am also getting a customer service object as well? And that is how a DI works. See, because my employee service is also relying on my customer service, hence when this code runs, it will also create an object of my customer service as well. So in simple terms, the more interfaces you would be having in your constructor injection, the more instance will be created inside the memory. Then if I press F10, my object initialized, and in this employee service, I will go to my get employees method, and you can see this get employee method will give me the relevant output, and then the output will be displayed on my browser. See how simple it is. Everything is done by my .NET Core pipeline. I only have to make sure that I should be attaching the multiple components together in a very valid way. Now, while working with a DI, you might face one issue as well. Let's go to program.cs and let's comment out this line, which is builder.services.addTransient, and for both the services. And let's run it again. The bad part is you will not get any kind of compile time issue. Since as you are injecting this into a constructor, and you might expect that you should get any kind of compile time issue, but the truth is there will be no compile time issue at all in this entire functionality. If I still run up my code, if I still refresh my browser, you can see Swagger is still up and running. But the moment you execute your APIs, you will get an error. And note down this error. When it says unable to resolve service of type iEmployee service, this is simple, this is straightforward that you have messed up your dependency injection configuration. And in 99% of the cases, you messed up with this line. So whenever you get this error, simply go to program.cs and start including the line which simply says that builder.services.add transient in whatever the classes, whatever the interfaces that you have added in your entire project. Now, this is it. If I again run my code, if I again navigate back to my browser, you will see there will be no issue and will be still up and running. So let me refresh it again and then click on employee, try it out, execute, and then and that will be fine. Okay. So this is a basics of DI, or I should say this is the place where a DI matters. You are not creating a dependency by yourself. You are not creating an object by yourself. Rather, you are asking a DI container in ASP.NET Core to give a dependency. And again, as I'm telling you, you have to also tell my ASP.NET Core framework that how long you want this object in the memory. And that is done with the help of these three methods, which I just showed you, which is my add transient, add singleton, and add scoped. I will be creating a separate video for this particular scope of a DI, but you should be understanding this in detail, and that will also come into an interview. Now, this is it for this video, guys. I hope you now understand the concept of a DI. Please stay tuned for the next part, in which I am going to explain the use case of add transient, add singleton, and add scope, and then we'll proceed further about the best practices that we should be using while working with a DI. This is it from my side, guys. Please like, subscribe, and share my content to your friends. Please subscribe to my channel. This will really keep me motivated to generate a new content for you. Thank you.